All right, so let's set the scene here. You've booked the trip you've been dreaming of, itineraries planned, cute new swimsuits ready to go. You're practically tasting those little umbrella drinks.
And then
And then
reality hits.
reality hits, that pre-trip stress kicks in, little things become a big deal,
Yep.
and suddenly you're like, why did I want to go on this vacation again?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that is precisely what we're diving into today.
Hmm.
Figuring out how to bridge that gap between expectation and reality and making couples trips everything you hoped for. We've got some really interesting excerpts from a book about the psychology behind couples traveling,
Oh, cool.
plus some real-life stories you'll find both hilarious and maybe a little too relatable.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I love a good relatable story.
who doesn't?
So this book we're looking at today, it actually compares going on a trip as a couple to the Hunger Games.
It does. Which,
A little dramatic.
a little dramatic maybe, but I get the point.
I mean, unless someone forgot the sunscreen.
Right.
Yeah, maybe it is like the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
go
yeah.
from barely seeing each other to 24/7 togetherness.
Right.
And that's got to be tough on even the strongest couples.
It is. And what this book talks about is that this big shift to being together all the time can be extra jarring because we put so much emotional weight on vacations.
Oh, totally. It's like this trip has to be perfect because it's our only chance to relax and reconnect for like a year.
Exactly. And that's where things get tricky. The book quotes his couples counselor, Martine Tylak. She says, "Don't overinvest in this vacation for two. We are not Robinson Crusoe alone on an island sharing our love. We belong to the real world."
Wait, so we're not supposed to be building a driftwood shack and living off coconuts? My Pinterest board is...
You can keep the Pinterest board.
Okay, good.
But I think the point she's making is that those everyday stresses, the little things we get annoyed about with our partners,
Like how I always leave my wet towel on the floor.
maybe, like that, they don't magically disappear just because we're on vacation.
Oh, man. I was hoping that was part of the deal.
Right. But expecting a vacation to be this perfectly harmonious bubble is setting yourself up for disappointment. It's more realistic to accept that a little bit of real life is going to come along. And that's okay.
Okay, that does make sense. So how do we manage those expectations and not turn our romantic getaway into a relationship? Hunger Games.
Well, this book actually gives a really interesting exercise for couples. It says to make 2 vacation wish lists.
2 wish lists? Okay, I'm listening.
So one wish list is the shared one.
Sure.
Here's what we both want to do on this trip list.
Right.
But then you each also make a secret wish list
Ooh.
with those individual hopes or things you want to do.
Oh, I see. So it's less about planning some big surprise for your partner and more about acknowledging that you don't have to be glued to each other's side 24/7 to have a good trip together?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even within a couple, individual needs and desires are still a thing.
Mm.
Creating space for those shared adventures and those moments where you can each recharge on your own can make the whole experience even better.
You know, I've definitely been on trips where I wish I had a little me time built in. Sometimes you just need an hour by the pool with a good book and no one asking questions.
For sure. And when you do come back together, you've both got these little adventures and discoveries to share, which just adds another layer to the whole trip.
It's like bringing back souvenirs, but instead of a cheesy keychain, it's this renewed feeling of appreciation for your partner and for the trip itself. Speaking of which, let's talk about another thing that can really mess with those vacation vibes: social media.
Ah, yes. The curated highlight reel of everyone else's seemingly perfect vacations. It's
Yeah.
so easy to get caught up in those comparisons.
The worst. You open Instagram and it's all beaches and cocktails and couples staring lovingly into each other's eyes. But you never see the sunburn, the arguments over directions, the exhaustion from trying to do absolutely everything.
And that is exactly why social media can be such a trap.
Yeah.
It creates this unrealistic expectation for what a vacation and even what a relationship should be.
Oh.
It takes all the focus away from just enjoying your own trip.
So we're constantly trying to measure up to these perfect little moments instead of just enjoying our own experiences.
Yeah. And the thing is, even those picture-perfect Instagram feeds are just a tiny sliver of reality.
Oh, absolutely. Behind every perfectly posed photo are like 10 outtakes and a whole lot of real life happening. It's like those expectation versus reality memes. But for vacations, the perfectly plated meal on Instagram versus the lukewarm pasta you actually ate because you were starving and too tired to find that cute little restaurant everyone recommended.
Exactly. And you know what? Often those reality moments are the ones that end up being the most memorable, the ones you'll laugh about for years to come.
Totally. It's those stories about disastrous meals, misconnections, unexpected detours that make the best dinner party anecdotes later on.
For sure. The unexpected moments are usually the best ones.
And this book actually reinforces that idea.
Right.
It says that going on a trip as a couple is like co-writing a suspense novel, but neither of you knows the plot twists.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
You set off with your itinerary and high hopes, but life has a funny way of shaking things up.
always. And there's always going to be that detour, that wrong turn, that moment where you have to ditch the plan and just go with the flow, which can be terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time.
Exactly. And often those unexpected twists lead to the best discoveries. Like finding that hole-in-the-wall restaurant with the best local food or that amazing viewpoint that wasn't even on your radar.
Okay, but what about when those plot twists are more like missing your flight or losing your luggage?
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
Well, in those moments, it becomes less about avoiding the bad stuff and more about how you handle it as a couple. Remember those pre-trip conversations that we talked about? That's where they really come in handy. If you've already got that open communication and a willingness to be flexible, those stressful situations can actually bring you closer.
So instead of letting a missed flight ruin your day, you turn it into an impromptu adventure. Grab a bottle of wine, find a cozy corner in the airport lounge, and boom, you've got a story.
Exactly. Because the goal isn't to have a perfect, Instagrammable vacation. It's about creating memories together, even if those memories involve a few mishaps along the way.
And honestly, those messy, unscripted moments are usually the ones that make the best memories.
They really are. They're the ones you'll remember and laugh about for years to come.
So to sum up all this great advice, what are a few key takeaways to help our listeners navigate the exciting and sometimes bumpy road of traveling as a couple?
I think it comes down to a few things. First, remember those picture-perfect vacations we see on social media.
Yeah.
They're just that picture's day. Don't let them steal the joy from your own experience.
It's about choosing to be present in your own adventure, not someone else's filtered version of it.
Exactly. Second, embrace flexibility.
Things are going to go wrong.
They will. Plans will change, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's all about how you adapt and problem solve together.
And hey, maybe even get excited about those little moments of alone time. Remember that secret wish list idea?
Right? Because having that time to recharge on your own can actually make the time you do spend together even better. And finally, don't forget about those pre-trip conversations. Talk about your expectations both individually and as a couple. What does your ideal vacation look like? What are your non-negotiables? What do you need to feel happy, comfortable, and fulfilled on this trip, both together and as individuals?
It's like creating a roadmap for a truly memorable trip.
It is.
This has been awesome. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about couples travel, but about relationships in general.
Me too. It's a good reminder that life-like travel is best approached with a sense of adventure, flexibility, and a whole lot of humor.
Couldn't agree more. Now, before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. Something inspired by those secret wish lists we talked about. If you had to pick one thing that you absolutely need to feel fulfilled on vacation, something that might be different from your partner's, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think for me, it'd be having at least one totally unstructured day. No itinerary, no plans, just the freedom to wander, explore, and see where the day takes us. How about you?
That's a good one. Mine would have to be experiencing something new together, trying a local dish we've never heard of, or finding some hidden gem while we're exploring. It's those shared moments of discovery that I really look forward to.
I love that. And there you have it. Proof that even if you have different individual needs, there's always common ground to be found in the shared adventure of travel. And isn't that what it's all about?
Absolutely. Here's to embracing the messy, the magical, and everything in between. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive in happy travels. 2 wish lists. So one is like what we said we want to do together, and then a secret one with things you want to do on your own.
Exactly. So it's less about surprising each other and more about acknowledging you don't have to be joined at the hip 24/7.
I love that. It's like recognizing you can both do your own thing and still have an amazing trip together.
Exactly. And when you do come back together, you've got all these new stories and experiences to share, which just adds this whole other dimension to the trip.
Right. It's like you're bringing back a souvenir, but instead of a shot glass, it's this renewed feeling of appreciation for each other. And the trip itself. Speaking of things that can mess with those vacation vibes, what about social media?
Ah, yes. Scrolling through everyone else's highlight reels, it's so easy to get caught up in the comparisons.
So easy. You open Instagram and it's all perfect beaches, delicious food, Couples gazing into each other's eyes, you never see the sunburn, the arguments over directions, the exhaustion from trying to do everything.
Exactly. It creates this totally unrealistic expectation for what a vacation should look like and what a relationship should be. It takes all the focus away from experiencing your own trip.
So instead of just enjoying where we are, we're stuck comparing ourselves to these picture-perfect moments.
And the thing is, even those perfect Instagram feeds are just a tiny curated sliver of reality.
Oh, I know. Behind every perfectly posed photo are like a dozen outtakes.
Exactly. It's like those expectation versus reality memes.
So,
For vacations.
totally. The perfectly plated meal on Instagram versus the lukewarm pasta you actually ate because you were starving and couldn't find that restaurant everyone was raving about.
Exactly. And you know what? A lot of times, those less than perfect moments, those are the ones you end up remembering, the ones you laugh about later.
For sure. It's the stories about disastrous meals, wrong turns, unexpected detours that make the best stories later on. It really is like that. The book actually says going on a trip as a couple, it's like writing a suspense novel together. But neither of you has any idea what's going to happen.
That's a perfect way to put it. You start out all these big plans, but then life happens.
Right. Like there's always going to be a detour, or you miss a train, or you have to completely change your plans, and you just got to roll with it.
And those unexpected moments often lead to the best memories. You find the coolest places when you're not even trying.
Okay, but what about when those unexpected moments are more like missing a flight or your luggage gets lost? I'm not going to lie, that's happened to me.
Okay, well, in those moments, it's not so much about avoiding the bad stuff. It's about how you and your partner work through it together. Remember those pre-trip chats?
Yeah.
That's where they're so important. When you've already talked about your expectations and you're both willing to be flexible, those stressful situations can actually make your bond stronger.
So instead of freaking out about a missed flight, you turn it into an adventure. Grab some food, find a place to relax, and suddenly you've got a great story.
Exactly. It's not about having this perfect Instagram-worthy trip. It's about making memories together, even if it's a little messy.
And honestly, those are usually the best memories.
They are. The ones you'll remember and laugh about years later.
So to wrap up all this great advice, what are some key things our listeners should keep in mind when they're planning a trip together?
A few things. First, those perfect vacations we see online.
Yeah.
They're just that pictures. Don't let them steal your joy.
Choose to enjoy your own experience.
Exactly. Second, embrace flexibility. It's going to happen. Plans will change. And that's okay. It's about how you adapt.
And you know what? Maybe even get excited about those moments when you get to do your own thing. That secret wish list is genius.
It's the best. Because having a little time to recharge makes the time you spend together even better. And finally, don't forget to talk before the trip about your expectations. What do you want this trip to look like?
What's important to you?
Exactly. What do you need to feel happy and comfortable on this trip, both together and individually?
It's about being on the same page.
It is.
This has been amazing. I feel like I've learned so much, not even just about traveling, but about relationships too.
Same here.
Yeah.
It reminds you that life is kind of like traveling. You need to be open to adventure, be flexible, and try to find the humor in everything.
So true. Well, that about wraps things up for us this week. Thanks for joining us on another deep dive. Happy travels, everyone.